Best Director, we have Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. We have Todd Phillips for Joker. Todd Phillips for Joker. Sam Mendes for 1917. Quentin Tarantino for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. And Bong Joon-Ho for Parasite, which won. So,
Who won? Yeah.
Bong Joon-Ho won the Oscar. Yeah, any thoughts?
Quentin Tarantino, I think.
Do we just name our picks?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just name our
I guess you're going to pick Lighthouse.
If I could, no, like, without, once again, unironically, if that was an option for me, I would totally, absolutely be Eggers. But unfortunately, the Academy decided not to present me with that option. Therefore, I will have to say that I would probably go with Sam Mendes.
I don't think this movie should have won. It didn't get nominated. I don't think it should have won, but I do feel like maybe a shout out to these directors would be kind of nice, is the Russo brothers, because I can't even imagine trying to construct a 3-hour movie, like culminating 22 films and making it even coherent. That must have been like very difficult on a directing standpoint. So I feel like maybe a shout out would have been nice. I don't think they should have won.
Off topic, but I do think that if the Russo brothers ever received a shout out from the Academy, Avengers Endgame is not the film to be that shout out, despite its cultural significance, because like I still stand behind that the movie overall, when you don't attach yourself to its pop culture significance, as I already said, is pretty choppy and imperfect. Infinity War, on the other hand, was pretty much a masterpiece in action movie filmmaking.
I would agree with Oleg on that point.
Maybe? I don't know.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't know.
regardless,
I just feel like constructing like a giant blockbuster, I feel like it's kind of difficult. Just a bit.
No, it's,
that was totally difficult.
It's very hard to
respect
do.
them.
Although I will say, I don't think Infinity War or Endgame were good enough to warrant getting a director nod.
Yep, I agree.
Like it's a
Yeah.
very hard task, and I think
It's a bit of a stretch, but yeah.
I think that they should be like given respect. Like I don't think that the Russo brothers are respected enough for how well they did, but I don't think they did well enough to earn recognition here.
That's fair. Like, again, I don't think they should win because I don't think it was the best directed film of the year. I just think it is very difficult to make a blockbuster.
It is.
And, yeah, some recognition is nice.
I mean, Todd Phillips, I guess, doesn't really fit among the other contestants here, in all honesty.
It should have been directed by Joaquin Phoenix.
I mean, it practically almost was, pretty much.
Yeah.
Martin Scorsese, like, I feel bad. I don't think Martin Scorsese's The Irishman was the best directed film out of the lineup. But at the same time, this was, like, a movie from an old man about, like, people, like, getting old and living life. And, like, you know, it's possibly, like, his last big movie like this, at least. And not only best director, he got nothing for it. And I kind of feel bad about that.
Yeah.
I feel it's kind of like, it's a 3.5 hour film that I never thought got boring. Like, there's moments where I'm like, I need to stretch for a second, but like, the movie is engaging throughout. It's very well acted, and the last 40 minutes are just, or the last hour, just fantastic.
I disagree. I don't think it's his best movie at all. I think it's above Casino, but that's about it.
I don't think it's his best either.
No, I didn't say best. I said it's his, like, last A-game movie. Like his last big, good movie.
Has he won an Oscar? I think he got one for...
Yeah,
He won The
he's
Departed
won an
in
Oscar.
2006. Best Picture
That
and
is a
Best
good
Director.
movie.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Which I think most people could tell you was throwing him a bone for the fact that they didn't give him an Oscar for Raging Bull or Goodfellas. Goodfellas lost to Dances with Wolves, and I believe Raging Bull lost to Chariots of Fire. But I'm not sure about that one.
Yeah, no, that's kind of rough.
Yeah, I mean, Goodfellas was an obvious choice. That's one of the best films ever. So that would have been an easy one. But Yeah, I think that Best Director this year was actually the correct choice. Not just out of who was nominated, but just overall. I think no other director had more of a challenge making a film this year. Parasite was a masterful mix of 5 different genres that never felt choppy, and basically has done something that I have never seen before in the 1,300 films I've watched, and I doubt I will ever be able to see done as well again. Not to say that Parasite is like the greatest film I've ever seen, but it was definitely like the best directed movie I saw last year.
Parasite had phenomenal direction. Like, I do personally prefer the work done in 1917. It was more impressive to me because I just had contextual problems with Parasite and the direction, which we're going to talk to when we're discussing the Best Picture nomination. But yeah, no, the direction, in all fairness, was amazing, and I understand why it was chosen.
Cool.
All right.
Is
Ready
it
for the
that
big one?
time? Is it that time?
Okay.
I think it's that time. All right.
Here we go.
Best Picture nominees are Ford v Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story,
Parasite.
1917, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood,
Parasite.
and the winner was Parasite.
Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. Joker doesn't deserve to be on the list. Like, great movie, but best of the year? Anywhere near that? No. I haven't seen Little Women and Marriage Story, so I can't really rule in on those. But of the rest of them, I would give it to 1917. I really can't think of a flaw in the movie at all. So, yeah.
I think I have one major problem, which is what holds it back from, like, I think being a great film is the pacing.
I think the pacing is just fine. I really don't see an issue with it.
I disagree on that, but I guess that also might just be like personal feelings.
It's definitely personal. I will say that, like, I watched 1917 in the theater together with Alex, and like, it seemed like we were both very much engaged, but personally, like, that movie had me on the edge of my seat beginning to end. Like, personal juicy details that I will regret that I shared in a second. When it was over, I realized just, like, how much I forgot about the fact that I really needed to go, which happens to me in the theater. But yeah, like, a very small and stupid indication of how invested I was in the movie.
I think it's a fair indication.
Yep.
Like, I think that's
pretty
a lot, honestly. I don't think 1917 was the best movie of the year, and I don't think it was even one of the, I mean, maybe the upper half of these nominees, but I think 1917 has its fair share of problems. The cinematography and the production design are absolutely fantastic. The pacing, I agree with Einish, I don't think is very good, and there's like, but also, like, to be fair, the movie has a big issue because if you pace it too perfectly, like if it's like perfectly evenly paced, then it starts to feel kind of like it doesn't feel real at all, because life is very imperfectly paced, and because there's no editing, then you can't hide that. But also, if you try and pace it like completely like super fast and then boringly slow, and then super fast and then boringly slow, like life actually is, then it doesn't feel cinematic. And so the movie kind of compromises in a way that I don't think satisfies either artistic ambition. Another issue I have with the film is that I think it feels like a video game. There is basically no way that everything that happens to those people in that movie would ever happen in that span of time. Which, like,
I agree.
Again, I appreciate that it's a movie and you have to make some artistic choices in that regard. Like, I 100% understand that. I don't fault the screenwriters for doing that whatsoever. But to me, I never felt like it was very real, because it all felt like a video game cutscene. And it was just, a lot of it was the cinematography, but it felt so clean and so sterile and it felt like a bunch of editing together of like pre-constructed like CGI scenes.
I will, for a second, just support you on the point that it did definitely feel too clean. Like, I think I already mentioned it early in this podcast that it lacked the grit that I want to see from a war movie, and that's not something I realized right away after watching 1917, but too clean is definitely a good way to put it.
Kind of like too simulated also, where like everything is in motion at the correct moment, sort of a thing.
Yeah. Again, though, I'm not trying to say 1917 isn't a good film. I definitely think it is.
Nobody
and
is.
It's a remarkable technical achievement. But when you're looking at Best Picture, you can't look at Best Technical Achievement. You have to look at the best film in terms of every asset of it. And I think its pacing and the way that it's written and super sterile definitely holds it back from getting that distinction.
Okay, I'll go next then. My favorite movie that I've seen last year and that had the most impact on me out of the movies that I've seen last year is hands down The Lighthouse. However, it is not on this list. And
Really?
I legitimately, genuinely believe that it is not fair. Maybe it shouldn't have won, because I agree, this is a tough matchup, but it at least should have been there.
They
That
also have the
aside-
space.
Yeah, I agree.
That-
I think The Lighthouse definitely should be on this list. I also don't. I don't think it should have won, but I mean, in all frankness, of my top 10 films of the year, only 3 of them are in the Best Picture category. So, and The Lighthouse is number 7. So,
I really liked it. I understand that my appreciation
Number
of it
6
comes
is Tall
from
Girl.
subjective reasons, but like, yeah, I just think it deserved a place. That said, like that aside, getting that out of the way,
Deserved a spot. It should
yeah,
have
absolutely.
been on there.
definitely the Best Picture was one of the hardest Oscar categories for 2019 in years, just because of how strong the contestants were. I have my issues with Parasite winning Best Picture. Not because like, oh my god, it's a foreign film winning here, like in America. Definitely bullshit argument. My issue is
That's why 1917 should have won. An American film.
made by Brits.
I saw that
God
argument.
damn it.
that
Yeah.
killed me when that anonymous voter said, "I don't think the foreign films should be nominated with the regular movies. I'll be voting for 1917." I was like, "Are you fucking serious?"
Yeah, that was a big brain moment.
That was a meme.
Yeah,
That's
like-
gotta be a meme.
No, it's
The reason
real.
for
No, it's
It's
that-
real.
That is an actual video on YouTube. Yeah. The reason why I have a problem with Parasite is because while I feel that Bong Joon-Ho has a good grasp on what he wants to say with the movie, he doesn't really do the best of job communicating his message. Maybe that is due to the fact that we're just used to the European, just the Western method of storytelling. But every person I've ever talked to, myself included, has either completely misunderstood the message of the movie or recognized that they had trouble understanding the message of the movie.
Mhm.
About other contestants, I agree that Joker doesn't really deserve to stand in this lineup, even though it is one of the best movies of the year, like in a very broad one-off sense. Ford v Ferrari doesn't really deserve to be there. It's definitely a technical nomination that is there due to its editing, sound and the racing scenes. The Irishman, I feel like, is just a nod of respect to Martin Scorsese. It's a good movie that it's a good time, it's a good achievement, but I feel like it doesn't truly stand out among other nominees. Marriage Story is carried through the acting solely. Little Women was, I don't know, I liked it, but it was kind of it was good, but not more than that for me personally.
Where's
I agree.
Uncut Gems?
Uncut Gems, by the way, good
question.
point. Good
a
point.
good
Uncut
question.
Gems.
I just realized that. Where's Uncut Gems? Sorry to interrupt. I just realized that.
Yeah, no. You raise a good point because Uncut Gems should also be on this line. That's another A24 movie that is really good. Like Adam Sandler of all of them, producing fucking quality like that. Yeah. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, definitely, like, don't think it's the best. I can understand the people who think it's the best. It's definitely a very well made, a very passionate movie. Like, yeah, I guess that was a little bit of a rant. But yeah, I would personally pick, out of these movies, at the end of the day, probably, oh my god. Like,
1917.
You can do
it's
it.
hard
Oleg.
for me. Like, I can't really pick 1917. I guess it's a toss-up between 1917, the issue of it being too clean, Parasite, the issue of it being trouble with communication, and Jojo Rabbit, the issue of it being it's really well made for what it is, but it doesn't quite stand up to the other two. That's kind of where I stand.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm with Oleg and a lot
Yeah.
of that. I really am. Hell yeah. I think that I agree with most of what you said about like what should and shouldn't be there. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, like Jojo Rabbit definitely has its place. Little Women absolutely has its place. I think Little Women of the movies in this category, I think Little Women was the second best of last year. And I think it's not too hard for me to think that Little Women was the second best movie of last year of these films nominated, not overall. But I definitely think Parasite was the best movie of last year for many of the reasons I stated earlier. And also, I think it's hard to be upset with Parasite winning because even if you don't think Parasite was the best movie of last year, it's still the first foreign language film to win Best Picture. And also, I don't think there's too many people who would say that Parasite isn't one of the top 2 or 3 best movies in this category either. So at the end of the day, even if you don't think Parasite is the best movie of the year like I do, you still have to admit that it's one of the 2 or 3, meaning that you're probably not too upset that it took the top slot. And it also sets a precedent going forward for the Academy to maybe be more open to a greater range in filmmaking. So that's
if
where
I
I stand.
miscommunicated that, I wasn't like, maybe I said upset, but I'm not necessarily as upset as I'm conflicted about this win, because I think that Parasite is still very much a masterpiece. And this is one of the few times where I see a winner in the category of Best Picture for the Oscars, and I don't say to myself, well, this was a political decision. Well, I actually didn't like this movie at all. I think this is a solid movie. I think this is a respectable decision. I really like the fact that it's a foreign movie. I respect Parasite, and I respect Bong Joon-Ho for what they are.
I totally get that. I
I
didn't think that at all. I think you're totally respectful. I never doubted that.
Hmm. Unlike me, total mobster.
Okay, Alex, what do you think?
I bet Alex
We
thinks
already
Green
heard.
Book should have won. That's probably his two cents.
Yeah.
Fried Chicken, the movie.
For 2019, Green Book should have won.
Yeah, no, I mean 1917 is my vote. It had the most white men in it, so that's what makes it good. No, my mistake. I'm an incel, so I like Joker.
But you're not
I mean,
a real
honestly,
man.
by that-
you
by
would
that
have
logic, you
you would
should
have
have
voted
went
for
with-
Ford v Ferrari if you were a real man.
Alex,
About cars.
if you want to go on record saying Jojo Rabbit is your pick as an incel,
I did not like Jojo Rabbit as much as you guys did. I'll go on the record and say that.
I think Jojo Rabbit was the best World War I film of last year. So that's my take.
I actually would agree with that.
Wait,
Please don't
World War
assault.
One.
Andrew.
I
Yeah,
think
no. Again, I think you're totally right.
Oleg confused.
Nani?
Like World War One, not World War Two.
Guys, I'm in on the joke.
Oh,
You know,
Give give me some
took-
credit, Jesus.
No, the first time I thought you like just didn't hear me say once. You thought I said World War film, but then the second time I'm like, I'm pretty sure he gets it. But...
Yeah, I'm
No,
sorry.
I've heard Einish make that joke before. I like that joke.
I reuse my jokes. I don't have many of them.
That's fair. I do the same thing.
But yeah, 1917 is my pick.
Just what do you think about Parasite? Because we
movie.
all kind of added our own 2 cents into it.
Parasite, I mean, I pretty much agree with you. I mean, we talked for, I think, like 2 to 3 hours after we watched that movie. That it's very strong, it's very well done, but at the same time, it's very, it doesn't know how to say what it's trying to say, and I'm not sure that it even really knows what it's trying to say. So
I think part of it might just be the translation or something. Part of it.
No, because I watch a lot of Asian cinema. I'm a little bit of a weeb, admittedly. So I watch a lot of Japanese and Korean stuff.
Yeah, me too.
So, I'm pretty used to by now the weird translation stuff. So like, remember when we went to see Rashomon in theaters, and you guys were kind of like sitting there going, I don't understand this, and I'm like,
Okay, no, that wasn't them. That was me, specifically.
that was you. But like, to me, when I heard that, I was like, oh, that's right. I've watched so much like anime and Japanese movies and all that stuff that I'm like, yeah, it's just natural to me. I just automatically make the conversion in my head of like, oh yeah, this is how we're telling the story this time.
I have to say, I have no shame admitting that as somebody who grew up in a country who was in the process of importing the American national identity due to the destruction of communism, which was during the 20th century substituted for the Russian national identity. And so as somebody who grew up in that like time of rapid Americanization, I have trouble sometimes understanding Asian storytelling.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's fair. I'd say.
I sometimes have trouble with the translation, even though I've been watching more anime films recently, but I still have some trouble with.
Yeah, I'm not talking about like the language, because I mean, of course, I don't understand the language that I don't speak. I'm saying like just the way the story is told. Yeah, I didn't actually. The way the story is told, the way like kind of like certain expectations, certain tropes, even certain visual language eludes me often.
I've actually found myself slowly learning, like watching so much stuff that
you can say
at this
hentai.
point, yeah, well, so much anime. I watch so much anime that at this point I am actually able to correct the translations on like on the subs. I'll be reading it and I'll go, that's not what they said.
Nice.
I'm like, oh no.
Happens a lot with ghost stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think of recent years, this is actually like one of my favorite Oscar viewings. I think they did a pretty solid job overall. Like, obviously there were a lot of snubs and like a lot of things I didn't. Where I'm like, why did that win over that? But overall, it was more on point than usual, I would say. I thought.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah, me too. I think the Oscars were definitely better than usual this year. I also think that 2019 was a pretty darn good year in movies, so they had even if they didn't exactly pick all the right things, there was enough quality to go around that they still picked some pretty good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I liked it. I liked the Oscars this year. They got a lot right. Obviously, they got a lot wrong too, but or at least in my eyes, got a lot wrong. But overall, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I understand that. Yeah. I will say that the Oscars are really not that significant in the world of cinema for filmmaking. They're only significant as a historical achievement for those who win the Oscars. For that reason,
It's
Sorry,
kind of
yeah.
important for the winners too, actually, because based off of if they win, they usually have an easier time afterward making movies or having their way and
Yeah,
not
that's kind
dealing
of what
with
I'm trying to say.
studios.
Like, it doesn't matter creatively that much. The Oscars, for a long time, people have been saying the Oscars are, like, not the same. The Oscars are a joke. While I don't necessarily agree with that, they definitely don't very much stand for what the best of the best really is. They just offer, marketable opportunities to the winners, and they offer the winners the fame that comes with it. So, while I might disagree with some of the choices made here, I think that it's very cool that almost all the nominees, and especially almost all the winners, truly deserve what they have. Looking at Judy here. But yeah, I just think that, like, it's a step in the right direction, and unlike the previous few years where I just had issues upon issues with the Oscars, 2019 was a year when something was finally done right.